Alright, so, welcome back to another review. Here's the next part of the Dekoni Blues comparison saga. Today we're pitting it against the HiFiMAN Sundaras, a well-revered legend in the making. So I'm well aware that this is a one-sided comparison since they do sit somewhat apart in terms of price points. Therefore, this comparison will be a more condensed version of my usual format, just to glean over the more obvious parts. So don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, the whole ordeal. I really appreciate it. Now without further ado, let's begin. So, contents / build quality / comfort. Their contents are pretty similar. Both stock cables are absolutely atrocious. They're short and they're non-malleable. The big difference here, though, is the Blues offer a one-sided 3.5mm tip ring sleeve port that is compatible with just about any aux cable that you can get your hands on, assuming you're willing to accept the strange protrusion, of course. The Sundaras offer a dual-sided 3.5mm solution which, in my opinion, is a far more comfortable solution, especially when sitting at a desk. The overall build quality of the Sundaras it's far better than the Blues, considering it manages to offer more metal parts while just barely increasing the weight. In terms of comfort, the Sundaras actually knock it out of the park when compared to the Blues as well. At first, they both seem to offer a similar design, so you'd imagine they feel about equal in terms of comfort, right? Wrong. As you wear them for hours, you realize that the Blues get quickly outranked by the Sundaras. So the pads on the Sundaras are slim, and they quickly break in, as you can clearly see on my pair. And it's not like I use these, like copious amounts of hours, or I use them for work or something like that. I don't. These are just one of my side headphones, and I pick them up every now and then, though I do pick them up because I do enjoy them. Because of their slimmer profile, they barely protrude from your head and manage to stay close, thereby reducing the amount of weight that lies far from your head. Their weight distribution it's amazing. It really is. The suspension strap mechanism really helps provide a very snug yet comfortable experience. Now the Blues, on the flip side, they don't sit well on my head. The majority of the weight lies at the cups themselves, which makes moving your head a bit of a hassle, really. It does. And to top it all off, no pun intended, the headband puts a hot spot at the top of my head. Unless you plan on using extra padding, it's inevitable for me. You're gonna get the hot spot up here. Now there are mods to the T50RPs out there, like the Mod House Argon, by the way, review coming up soon in comparison. But as far as the Dekoni Blues stock configuration is concerned, that is not the case. Now let's discuss amplification. On the THX AAA 789, I ran the Blues at about 230 on gain 1, 1 o'clock on gain 2, and about 10 AM on gain 3. By the way, big recommendation. Get a very powerful amp for these, and if you're running them on, say, something like the AAA 789, the higher the gain, the better. It actually makes a big difference in terms of sound quality. Now on the other hand, I ran the Sundaras at about 130 on gain 1, 1130 on gain 2, or 930 on gain 3 through single-ended. And by the way, no, I will not compare them balanced, just because you can't really run these balanced. And they don't come with a balance cable stock either. But rest assured, the Sundaras aren't necessarily massive, power-hungry monsters that drastically change with a balance cable anyway, so it's not a huge deal. And now let's approach the sound quality. So, to reiterate the point I made at the beginning of this video, we all know the Sundaras are the better headphone. It is. They are. So I'll do my best to refrain from declaring a winner in each category. Now the focus of this comparison is more about comparing the sound signatures rather than sound quality. Of course, I'll be sure to mention anything that really seems off or really noteworthy. And as usual, all impressions are EQ free. No EQ will be used until the notes and observations portion of this review. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. So we start off on the bass section. Mid-bass is a little more prominent on the Blues than on the Sundaras. The Sundaras still deliver a relatively powerful bass response, though their presence lie a little closer to the sub-bass region. Now the Blues presence still has plenty of sub-bass, but its mid-bass is what delivers a denser wall of sound with every impact. It's a a real big smack with the blues as opposed to the Sundaras. So here's an example for bass guitars, Which Image by Ghost. In this particular track, the bass guitar is far more prominent on the blues than on the Sundaras. It's a night and day difference here. It definitely takes the stage right next to the vocals. Vocals are here, bass is right here. The bass is just, it wants to be the bass. Well, I would assume all basses want to be the bass, but anyway, in no way is the bass guitar recessed in this track. Now the Sundaras, on the other hand, present the bass guitar as part of the support, which is the more traditional way of doing things, while the vocals and some upper percussion take the lead. Now in terms of timbre, bass guitars will sound more lean and textured on the Sundaras, and thick and heavy on the blues. And I mean that, like, it's a big difference. Drums experience a very similar effect here as well. The blues play them with a thunderous and thick slam, like a pound. It is a boom, while the Sundaras keep them lean and swift. So pros and cons to each depending on what you like, but it is what it is. Now let's talk about the mids here. The Sundaras give female vocals plenty of room to breathe and stand on their own, but they don't necessarily bring them forward either. The blues do a bit of the opposite. They bring them forward a little bit, but the other instruments try to compete with them as well. That sort of results in a bit of a trade-off. You gain presence at the cost of breathability. So instruments as a whole will sound a tad more forward on the Sundaras, but they also sound a whole lot more detailed as well. I know that sounds a bit vague, but the Sundaras really do just elevate the playback experience to sound a bit more three-dimensional. It's funny, the mids aren't the real difference here. It's how everything else affects the mids on each headphone, really. Now let's approach the treble here. Right off the bat, a lot more sibilance on the blues than on the Sundaras. It's unequivocal. Inequivocal? It's unmistakable. If you recall, the Sundaras do have a bit of a quirk up top in the airy side. That is something the blues do not possess, particularly since they don't possess a whole lot of air in the first place. In fact, you could consider these opposites in that regard. Neither one of these are dark in any way. While the blues possess a somewhat forward treble, which then rolls off, the Sundaras possess a more reserved treble response, which then gets a little roller coaster up top, like highest of the peaks, like all the way up there in the air, not in the upper treble. Like we're not talking 4K, 6K, 8K, we're talking all the way up there, like in the 10Ks plus region. That's when it begins to happen. So a quick example to show that, and I love this one, Thunder Horse by Deathclock. So I love using this track when comparing against the Sundaras, because they managed to bring forth this one metallic sounding instrument, and it feels like it's located between your jaw and your throat. Like it's just right there where this happens. And as I've mentioned before, if you are a fellow Redditor, you know where your division is supposed to be. The blues are almost devoid of that particular sound, which, by the way, does sort of lean closer towards neutrality in that regard. Overall, the blues treble response is a lot of the pain with barely any gain, while the Sundaras land closer to the opposite side of that. Not exactly the antithesis of the blues, but it's closer. Why did I say it like that? Soundstage and imaging. Let's discuss. The two are very similar in terms of soundstage width, but once again, the fact that the blues are semi-open back headphones really confine the sound, and it annoys me, because they may as well be entirely closed back. The Sundaras are a little taller and definitely don't inhibit the sounds from exiting outwards and expanding. And just like with soundstage, the blues closed back sound really inhibits their imaging capabilities. So I'll give an example here. Ordinary World, the hit house soundtrack used in the Evil Within 2. The Sundaras and the blues actually go head to head in some instances here. They're very similar in terms of width, and really come close with positioning. However, it's very easy to hear that limitation put in place. It's a real shame. It really is. And now let's go over some notes and observations here. Let's talk about EQ. Here's the EQ I set up for the blues. The goal here was to normalize the blues' amateurish V-shaped sound signature into what is either a more neutral signature or at least a better balanced signature. It's not perfect, it's not, but it does improve on some of the deficiencies and excesses we discussed. The mids feel less scooped out, the bass learns to not go full flex all the damn time, and the treble is kept a little more at bay as well. Now, here are my settings for the Sundaras, and I actually went back and revised this because I don't know if I mentioned this, but a little while ago my computer kinda well, I don't want to say exploded, but it kind of screwed up a bit, which means I lost all my settings for piece EQ, and unless I go back to my videos and find them that way, I have to like manually listen to headphones and readjust them. So I said, you know what, screw it, I guess it might be time for a refresh. Anyways, back to the topic. I actually feel like the Sundara's peaks and dips are more of a quirk than an imperfection or defect. Therefore, I only had a few adjustments to make here. You can choose to add a little extra rumble down there below 30K, it's totally up to you. It won't interfere with non-bass focused tracks nor degrade the quality of the bass in any way. Also, I gave it a little bit of a shave up top near the air just because I feel like they can benefit from it. While I don't particularly mind that particular bump in the air, some people might. So here's to you people. And so, to conclude, once again the blues fall behind by quite the considerable amount. I knew this would be the case right from the get-go, but I wanted to put this out here, just in case we have some blues owners that are wondering whether going for the Sundaras or a planar around that similar price range really is worth the hassle. And in short, yes, get the Sundaras. My link down below, go get it. I really feel for the blues, just as I've said a handful of times now. They really do have so much potential. It seems as if an open back variant of these can tame that trapped mid-bass and excessive treble peaks. Perhaps even a pad change might allow for even more sounds to escape and neutralize the headphone's natural sound signature. Too bad, I suppose. Because these pads don't feel bad, they feel amazing. These are beautiful, wonderful, comfortable, plush, soft pads. They are. They just don't mesh well with the headphone. But well, I guess that's all there is for this one. Coming up next, the last of the Dekoni Blues comparison saga, the Modhouse Argon Mark III. And yes, we'll have an individual review for that as well, but you know, all in due time. Probably the most exciting of the comparisons, huh? But anyway, that's where we're going to go ahead and leave it. Thank you very much for watching this, and to the two of you that benefited from this, you're welcome. So go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, you know what to do, and I will see you in next week's video. Okay, ciao.